Welcome back to another episode of Security Minutes. I'm here with Matt Yeoman. How are you, Matt?
Very well, thank you for having me.
Matt, today I want to talk about defending against business email compromise. It's a big challenge for organizations. What I wanted to understand from you is what role does AI play in identifying these types of risks?
Typically, these types of attacks have been the hardest to pick up when it comes to email security. Reasons being, they often come from a trusted source.
Yeah.
They're payloadless. They don't contain a malicious attachment or URL. That's something we've often leveraged in the past. It could be a case for an account, a trusted account that we've communicated in the past has been compromised. And really what we're looking at here is risk within the email body and the subject line, so text. And in order to identify that risk, you have to understand what the text means. And that's where Mimecast leverages artificial intelligence. We use something called social graphing, and that's able to detect anomalous communication patterns between the external sender and the internal recipient or your employee to understand the sentiment and meaning behind an email and to identify any risky indicators.
So threat actors are doing a lot of research, right? They're looking at what we post online. They're looking at how we communicate. They understand our businesses. And so building those emails is, actually really simple for them. I'm really interested, I've heard about this natural language processing, and maybe you can dive into that a little bit and talk about how that works.
Certainly. So if we think of what we're using at the moment or have used in the past to detect these types of attacks, we've used threat dictionaries, string matches, regex expressions. The fact of the matter is that you can say the same thing in many different ways.
Yeah.
And I'll share a great example. Our data science and threat intelligence team at Mimecast teamed together a couple of months ago to investigate this very use case. So there was a specific type of campaign we were looking at, and that was payroll switches. And essentially that's where an attacker impersonates an employee. They'll contact their payroll department in an attempt to change bankroll bank details. Now they found that out of the 2,000 emails within that data set, payroll switch was used in a unique phrase 500 different times. Therefore, when we look at string matches, threat dictionaries, regex, it was able to evade those types of detections where AI, or natural language processing, has the ability to understand sentiment and meaning.
Right. So if I'm understanding this correctly, let's say you and I communicate during normal work hours, 8 to 5, if that's what we consider normal these days, but let's just say it's 8 to 5, and our communications are typically focused on, what we're having for lunch. If the system sees a change in tone, it sees a change in the timing that the emails are being delivered or received, it's going to pick that up and highlight that as something that the team needs to look into further?
Exactly right. And I think a key point here too is that AI isn't just a single solution. We also have to take a defense in-depth approach.
Absolutely.
At Mimecast, we do the exact same. So we use machine learning models to detect unusual patterns in terms of communication times, communication history, and then the natural language processing is an augmentation.
So while the attacker's sophistication has increased, so has our ability to detect and respond.
It's a force multiplier for the attackers, the hackers, but also defensive security too.
So I mentioned before that we exchange emails about what we have for lunch. Now, when we go to lunch, there's these QR codes sitting at every table, and we can order from a QR code. Now, I know that there's risks involved in scanning a QR code. I mean, I'm in security, but they're becoming much more ubiquitous. What are some of the risks that you're seeing with respect to QR codes?
What I can share is that the Mimecast threat intelligence team has seen a significant increase in these types of attacks over the past 2 years. There's two main reasons why threat actors are leveraging QR codes. Number one is the fact that when we look at a QR code, we associate that with our leisure time. If I'm at the pub or at a cafe with mates, typically I'm scanning a QR code. I'm not thinking about it in a malicious sense. I'm comfortable in using it. It's habitual. Second to that, from a technology standpoint, it's used to evade traditional URL scanning techniques. The actual URL itself is masked behind the QR code, which means historically the URL scanning engines can't detect and then scan that specific page that the URL points to.
So it's another form of attack. I think it's called quishing. and then you've got Vision. It's just
That is correct. There's too many nicknames and acronyms in cybersecurity, but we call it phishing.
So what can we do to protect ourselves?
In terms of QR codes, I mean, first and foremost, security awareness training is paramount. We have to educate our users, not just because it helps us mitigate risk from a corporate perspective, but these are learnings they can take into their personal lives. Now, from a technology perspective, that's again where we can leverage AI. There's a technology Mimecast uses called computer vision, and essentially that's able to detect patterns or specific images from a graphic perspective. So it can detect QR codes, extract the URL, that then allows us to scan it.
Great information and great insight there. And actually a great lead into our next episode where we're going to be focused on human risk management in cybersecurity. Thank you very much.